Well, we're well into the Goodmark project already. At this early date, we've completely stripped the car with more freedom than we'd normally have during one of our restorations. You see, there was no numbers that matched on this car, and we're going to build kind of a hot rod out of it, so all of the pieces that we'd normally catalog and carefully preserve, a lot of them we just threw in the garbage. Now that we've got it down to here, I got the raw end of the deal again, taking the body while all Clute has to deal with is the panels, but now that we've got it stripped out, some of the things are pretty obvious. And some of these things are going to stop a guy like me in his tracks. First of all, we've got some serious patches here on the floor. Good thing that Goodmark makes a panel for it, but a mere mortal like me is going to have trouble actually installing it. We'll show you both sides of this thing. Now, there are a lot of things that you can do in here, just involving one of these. As you can see, a lot of this material comes up quite easily. In fact, this patch is only on there with pop rivets and adhesive. You can do yourself a lot of good by removing all this stuff. Now let's go to the rear wheel well. Well, before you get started on this part, cheer up, because there's absolutely nothing good about this kind of work. Wear the proper safety equipment and see if you can't find joy in work like this. Now, if you're doing this on your own and in your garage, chances are that these tools are the ones you're going to be working with. A little bit of heat, a little bit of lacquer thinner, one of these wire brushes, and one of these. Now, by the time you're done, you're going to have an assortment of wire brushes and an assortment of these. Be prepared to spend 2 weeks basically doing this. The most important thing is to stay committed. In 2 to 2.5 weeks, you can get the job done and get to an acceptable point. But the fact is, we don't have that kind of time. So the guys at Legendary Motorcar went ahead and sent out the Nova for sandblasting, and here stands a very smug Peter Clute. You were right this time, buddy?
The only time it ever makes sense to do it by hand is if you haven't gutted the car like this. I mean, if you're trying to detail the undercarriage and you still have all the exhaust up and all the brake lines and all the transmission and rear end in place, yeah, you got to do it with a wire wheel and a scraper and then paint it and mask it off. And we've done it before. Guys have said, I don't want to spend, to gut the car and do a ground-up restoration, but I want it still clean underneath. That's the only time it makes sense.
Well, you've got me there. But what we did find out in a couple of days rather than a couple of weeks is it's still kind of a serious job we got ahead of us.
It's actually more serious. Once you get it back from the blaster, the sandblaster, there are no more lies anymore. You can see it's all been repaired here, but the guys just use body filler all around the windshield frame, and we're going to have to make a bunch of pieces around this frame as well as the rear window. I mean, there's a ton of holes that have been cheesed up before, and the guys were trying to hide it. Once you blast it, all that pops out. If we didn't blast it, we wouldn't have seen it. The nice thing about the Goodmark panel, it's a full quarter panel that goes right into the roof line like the original panel. And like I said before, the rear window, it was all rusted through here. This panel goes right into the rear window area, so it saves us making this entire piece. So anytime you can, use an entire factory type full quarter panel. Makes life a lot easier, and people can't tell that you've replaced the panel.
It makes life a lot easier to know that when you're working with Goodmark, you're working with guys who've been through this hundreds and hundreds of times. They just make better pieces.
Yep.